Hi friends, it's Heather. Welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. And in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the movie September 5 or September 5th. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it. My daughter and I finally did get to see this movie, even though it came out December in limited release and supposedly in January in wide release. We didn't get to see it until today, February 1st, and we had to go to a bigger city to see it at a theater because we didn't get it where we live. I'm just going to be doing this review on my own. Megan went to the movie with me, but she's not going to contribute to the review because she was a little bit lost and confused and didn't have too much to say about it. And I was trying to give her additional information as we were watching, and that annoyed her more than anything. So I'll start out telling you just what Megan did say. She said that she would give it a 4 out of 5. And that she thought it was very well done and it was very intense, but she found herself a little bit confused by things that were happening in the film because they talked very fast. There was a lot of overlapping rapid dialogue, and sometimes they talked too quietly for her. There's also a lot of different languages going on because it was at the Olympics in Munich, and she wished it had subtitles. So if that's something that is important to you, I mean, a lot of movie theaters do have services for the hearing impaired. I don't know exactly how that works. I've never used that, but if that's something you're concerned about, or if this movie didn't come out near where you live, you might have to watch it eventually on streaming or some other way, and it might be helpful to use subtitles to help you follow along with all the dialogue. So just a little tip there. Okay, I thought this movie was amazing and very, very well done. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5, and I have lots of things to say. Okay, now this is going to be a completely spoiler-free review, although this was a movie about an actual real event in history, which is well documented and which you could find out information from a lot of other sources. So it's not like there's anything for me to really reveal or give away because it's a real thing that happened. The first thing I want to talk about is the specificity of the time when this took place. So this was an event that took place starting early in the morning, about 4:30 in the morning on September 5th, 1972, in the Olympic Village at the Munich Olympics. Now, if you haven't been following along, I've talked about this quite a bit. We were just in Munich a month ago, little over a month ago. And if you are not already following me on my original main channel, Heather Travels, I'm going to link to the playlist of our travels so far to Germany. Those videos aren't all up yet, but some of them are, and I'm not sure about the timing. The one where we actually go to the Olympic Park in Munich is either already up or is coming up soon. So if you want to see when we actually went to Olympic Park in Munich just 6 weeks ago, make sure you go over to that channel. So because we were just there, this was especially interesting for us to see this movie, and we had actually been hoping to see it sooner than this. We were actually hoping to go to it on Christmas Day, the day after we got back from Munich, but that was impossible because it didn't come out where we live. It took place September 5th, 1972 and into September 6th, 1972. Okay, the timing of this is very important for a lot of reasons. The first thing that was interesting to me is the fact that I was born 2 weeks before this happened. Okay, so I was born in late August of 1972. So this would have been a major news event that happened when I was a brand new baby. Whether my parents were in a cloud of dealing with a newborn and weren't really paying attention, I don't know. I don't ever remember hearing my parents talk about this when I was a kid or anything like that. But I don't think I even knew about this event until I was an adult. Maybe in high school. I don't know. I don't really remember. The first I ever learned about it, I think, honestly, was when the movie Munich came out some years ago. That was directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, that is also about this event, but it's about a very different part of this event, which is Mossad's, I would say, revenge on the terrorists that did this. So this was actually a terrorist attack It was a hostage-taking, murder, kind of almost a kidnapping of the Israeli athletes that were representing Israel at the Munich Olympics in 1972. This was a terrorist group known as Black September that was seeking the release of Palestinian hostages from Israel's custody. So the exact same conflict that we're still dealing with in the Middle East in these countries today, as recently as the October 6th and subsequent war that's been going on there for some time now. Okay, so if you're familiar with anything related to that, this is kind of the same issues going back that long. It's important to remember two things, given that this took place in 1972. Three things. One, Megan asked me right when the movie started, she said, was Germany still East and West Germany at the time? And I said, yes. And in fact, if you listen carefully, a couple times they actually say, reporting from Munich in West Germany. So they identify that it was still a divided Germany. So that's important because the Cold War hadn't ended yet and the Berlin Wall had not fallen yet or anything like that. That didn't come for another almost 20 years. The other thing that was really important to remember is that Israel as a nation, as it stands now, had only existed for about 24 years at the time that this happened. So that's just something to kind of note. And then the other thing that's really important to remember is that World War II was still very fresh in the minds of anybody who was currently my age or older at the time this took place, including some of the characters or the people, that were there when this was happening. Like, some of the top people at ABC that were present, they had lived through World War II, and this was very fresh in their minds. And, some of the German people and everything too. So that was very significant. So I explained to Megan before the movie started in a way that she could understand. I said, okay, that guy, he looks about my age, the age I am now. So I'm 52. World War II would have been to him like the 90s was to me when this happened. And she can totally understand that because in the 1990s, I was the age that she is now. And so she could relate to my saying, when I was the age you were, that would have been when World War II happened to this guy in this movie. So if that kind of tells you, because it was like 30 years ago for him. So the end of World War II was, mid-40s, and this was 1972, so about the same distance in time. This was a very compelling story that they were telling. The director, he's a young guy and he's a German guy, who did this movie, was really trying to show the story of these sports newscasters, but I have to throw in also this guy, Jim, that was on TV. And for him, they used actual ABC news footage. They put it in the movie. So the guy who was broadcasting from ABC Studios in Munich at the Munich Village, they didn't have an actor playing him. They used the actual news footage to show everything that guy said. They had an actor playing a young Peter Jennings. Peter Jennings, the newscaster, was there at the time working for ABC News, and he was in a neighboring building across from where the hostages had been taken and were being held captive in the Munich Village apartment building for the athletes where the terrorists were holding them hostage. He was in a building across from it and had a guy who was kind of thrown in as a cameraman, and he was reporting from there. And at one point, he even had to hide because the police came through and tried to clear all the press away, and he hid like in a closet or something until they left so that he wouldn't have to leave. And so he could keep reporting. So Peter Jennings was there. If you know who Peter Jennings is, he was on, I remember him being on the news when I was a kid and even into my teens, probably 20s. And so he was the news guy that was there. I think he was just there to report on the Olympics, I guess. But the rest of the crew that was there from ABC News were there to report on this as a sporting event. So these weren't professional news people, they were sports people. Okay, that's very important. And so that in itself was wild because they had to figure out how exactly to tell this story in a professional manner and knowing that a lot of people were going to be watching this. 900 million people saw this live because of this ABC sportscasting team that were there to report on the Munich Olympics. Okay, so it was, I think they said at the end of the movie that more people watched this than watched the moon landing in 1969. Then the fact that the guy who was in charge that day, his name was Jeff something, he was brand new. And he just got kind of like thrown into this situation. And I can't remember why. The guys that they were trying to get that would have done it normally, I guess the people who control everything in the control room is what he was. I don't know what that person's called. One of them was on a hike in the Alps, okay? And the other one, they couldn't get a hold of, or he couldn't get there or something. I don't know. But so this guy, Jeff, who was very inexperienced and new, had to run everything. And there were these two other guys. One was Peter Sarsgaard's character, and the other one was Ben Chaplin's character. And I don't really understand exactly what their roles were, but they were like above him, but didn't do what he did. So I don't know, but they were all with ABC. So that was really interesting in how he handled it and how he, pulled it all together. Another thing that was very, very interesting in the movie to me that they did a very good job with was there were more women than this there working in ABC. I mean, there was a good number of ABC employees in Munich at the time that this was happening. The Olympics takes weeks. You got to have a whole staff there and stuff. And they showed other women, like at one point, the one hostage who escaped, he was brought in by these, and you saw these women like getting him his makeup on and stuff for the cameras because he went into the broadcast room and they were interviewing him and stuff. But there were two main women that they were shown. One was an American woman, and she was, what was her name? Shoot, I forgot. She was amazing, okay? And I'm going to tell you what she did when I come to the next thing. But the other one was a German woman, and she was there working as their translator. And she was a key character in this movie, and she was phenomenal. Not only like what she did at the time, but the actress who played her in this movie. So she was, again, just kind of thrown into this too. But she was very smart and came up with a lot of ideas of how to better bring this story alive on the news. And one of the ways was she was listening to the German police radio. One of the tech guys on the crew hacked a radio so she could listen to what the German police were saying. And she came up with ideas, and she could translate, like they would watch the German news and she would translate what they were saying and things like that. She became very integral to their being able to pull this off. And she also went with two other guys to the airport at the end where everything kind of ended. And that in itself was rather traumatic for her. But she pointed out the German perspective, okay? And a couple other ways that came up, but she was the one that really focused on it, which was Germany at this time was very concerned about Germany's image. Germany was very distraught about the Holocaust and Hitler and World War II, and that they had allowed that to happen. And they were trying to get past it. Now, in some ways, obviously, that's good. But in some ways, and particularly in this situation, it ended up being kind of bad. Because, like, this one guy went on the news at the end and wrongly said that all the Israeli hostages had been freed, when that wasn't what had happened. He was so concerned with Germany looking okay. And she said, like, the police were trying to make it look like they knew what they were doing when they really had no idea what they were doing or how to handle this situation. And so Germany was really quite concerned with its image because of what had happened during World War II and how all the innocent people had been killed in the Holocaust. And they were very horrified by that, and they didn't want something like that to happen again. And so that was a whole interesting thing. And she, as the one German character, really brought that element of it into the movie. She also brought a nice female element in there where she pointed things out like from a woman's perspective. The last thing I want to talk about that was just absolutely fascinating to me, and which I think they did such an amazing job. I almost feel like this was the best part of the movie, was the sets and the props to show the technology of the time. How they had to do this with the technology that they had at the time just blew my mind. It was so interesting. Like, the stuff you were looking at and what they were using, I'm sure my daughter and anybody her age or younger than me would have been like, what the heck is that? You know, I mean, corded old dial phones and the stuff they had for they had to develop the film. They had to literally develop the film, and they showed that process before they could air film footage that they had took. ABC, the one guy, Peter Sarsgaard's character, was arguing with CBS because there was only one satellite, and they had to share, the networks had to share the satellite to air anything live. And CBS had booked this certain time slot like months ago, and Peter's character was arguing with the CBS people, no, I have to have the satellite at this time. I have to be able to show this live to the world. And so there was a whole big issue with that because they had to share the satellite and they had to share the time on TV that they could. And then the other woman that I mentioned, whose name I can't remember, she was the title person. She was the person that put the words on the screen that you would see. And how she did it was absolutely so low tech and fascinating. She literally was putting like little plastic letters, like in a little foam thing, and then filming it. And then like at one point it was an ABC magnet. You know, I mean, this was so low tech, and she had to do this stuff so fast to get it on there. And at one point, CBS like took over the live feed from ABC, and so they were all mad. But then Jeff came up with, or no, I think she actually came up with the idea. She's like, what if we just put our ABC logo up in the top corner in a way that they can't remove it, so they know it's ABC shot this footage even though CBS is airing it. So that's what they ended up doing. And it was just fascinating and rather amusing to me to see the very basic, rudimentary type of technology that they had to work with at the time. I mean, they were like literally like talking to each other on walkie-talkies and then having to like stick the walkie-talkie up next to the microphone to get, you know, like to communicate something from one place to another. There were no cell phones. There weren't even cordless phones. Just so much of the technology that we take for granted now that makes things so easy. I mean, with the internet and with satellites and with, you know, just the way everything is so connected and so simple with technology, they didn't have any of that. And to see the way that they had to put this broadcast together and this coverage of this event together with the very limited and primitive, I guess you would say, technology that they had at the time was really cool and interesting. And the fact that they were able to get all that stuff, like, I don't even know how they got all of the old stuff that would have been in the control room and that they would have used and everything. I don't even know where they would have found that stuff. Some museums, I seriously think. Or if they had to recreate it somehow. I mean, it was really interesting. And then along with that, the way that he shot the film, or that they edited the film, the lighting and the color and the way that they filmed it gave it a very 70s gritty kind of look. It captures the time, I think, really well. And then beyond that, like the costumes and stuff like that too. But it was really, really well done. I can't remember if this, I think it's gotten some Oscar nominations. I can't remember. But September 5th, highly recommend it for all these reasons I've talked about in this video. It was really well done and it was very interesting. I give it a 5 out of 5. So that's my review. 5 out of 5 from me, 4 out of 5 from my daughter. She would have liked the subtitles, I think. And she might get more out of it if she watches it a second time eventually later. It was really good. I'm really glad I got to see it, especially because we traveled to Munich just recently. If you're interested in history at all, or the history of broadcasting, or history of technology, or anything like that, this is a really good movie to watch. And even if you're not interested in those things, it was a very compelling, intense story. It was really well done. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.